Um, Today we're going to be talking not just about CMAs, but I want to go a little bit more in depth in that. I want to be able to kind of dig in and make sure that we are presenting valuable information to our clients. Now, with that said, keeping in mind that we're not appraisers, we're not licensed to do that. And even though a lot of the tools and resources that we have available can be as accurate as an appraisal sometime, that's not what we're going to be focusing on. What we really want to make sure is that we're using the information that we have to be able to provide our clients with enough information to make a wise decision on where to price their property to ensure that their price meets the market. Fair enough? So, with that said, there are a ton of different ways to go about doing a CMA. So, what I wanted to share with you guys are a couple different CMAs that I've done in the past. And then what we'll do is go forward and I'll show you an even easier way to do it. So, let me start by sharing a window and let's pick out the right one. Here we are. Okay, so I'm going to start with the least cool one, and then we'll go to a cool one. So this one is a valuation report. This is for a fourplex that I did, and I just did this in Word. It's something quick and simple, basically put in the information, and then I did more of a narrative. On here, you'll see that the reason I did more of a narrative is there's a few different approaches. So I did the income capitalization approach, I did the cost approach, and then also a comparative market analysis, and then tie all that together. So this is just one simple way that you can do it. The reason I did it this way was I didn't really want it to look pretty because it was going to a bank. So I wanted to keep it really to the point and seem pretty legit. Here's a different one that I did, and this actually incorporates kind of a listing presentation as well. So you'll see that we have the presentation that I'd created, talks a little bit about what we do, all that fun stuff. And then it goes and describes more of the subject property. And then this is where we get down to mapping out where the comps are. And then, of course, having just the general information so they can line everything out and then put together all the little pictures. This, again, is just one that I did in Word, made it look pretty, had some pictures, did a narrative of the valuation, and then came up with the suggested prices. Obviously, I'm the kind of person where I don't really want to put pricing like that anymore in my presentations. Instead, what I want to do is give them enough information, like I said, to help them make a reasonable assumption of what their price will be, and then help them understanding on if that's going to get it sold or not. So this is how we go about all that information. Obviously, first, you're going to start with your subject property. Let me jump over into another screen. Let's see, where did I put my MLS thing? Okay, so obviously something very simple is I don't necessarily, like, you want to know where the subject property is because that's what you're going to be focusing on. But what I like to start with is more of a broad picture. And sometimes to really start to narrow down, I'll even start with US stats and basically pull a report that says, hey, year over year, this is how each state is performing, and showing that, hey, it's number 42 is Louisiana. We've shown a 4.25% increase year over year. And then narrow it down a little bit more and say in New Orleans, this is how things are looking out year over year. And then narrow it down even a little bit and say in the Irish Channel specifically, this is how things are performing. So that's really where I like to start, is with that very high level information, and then start to drill it down from there. And that's when I'll start to get into some of the stats. So with these stats, what I want to show people is giving them an idea of how the market is performing. So showing them the current price per square footage, and also show them historical activity, because the historical activity can kind of give us an idea of any cyclical indices within the market. So if we're looking at detached residential single families in 70115, I'll pull that up. We'll just do a quick search right here. It'll generate the information. And what this will show are the number of listings that have hit the market in those times. And then I can also show them the historic sales by year, and that will show them this as well. So we can see May looks like tends to be pretty popular, and we can see where it dips down right around here. So January tends to be a little less popular. Now, if you don't like this chart, that's completely fine. I don't like it either. You can click this data information right here, and you can export that as a CSV. And I actually have done that, and I'll share that screen with you guys real quick. So we'll stop sharing that, and then let me pull up another window. This one is done in Numbers, which is the equivalent to Excel. And so what I did here is I took that information and I said, okay, well, what's the average prices that have sold, and what's the average square footages that have sold? And then I just map it all out, and it'll put all the little dots on here, and then I can add a trend line. So let me show you right here is, this is all the data that I pulled. So if I take the column for the sold price, and then I go over here and I take the column for the approximate square footage, then on here I can just click a scatter point chart, and it's going to draw it up for me right here. So you guys can see that. And if you don't like the colors, like I said, you can change all of that. Then I'll go into here into series, and I'll add a linear trend line. So then that way they can kind of see, okay, well, based on the information that he's showing me, I can see that if my house is around 3,000 square feet, I can draw straight up from there. It's going to sell for about $775. Cool. All right. So let me pause for a minute and ask if everybody is understanding everything that I've taught so far. Looks good? Questions, comments, concerns? I didn't think so. Okay. So once you have all of that very high level information and you're explaining the market, how the market performs, explaining the seasonality of when is a good time to meet the market and what does that look like, and also keeping in mind of what their goals are. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to sell their house. Their goal is to get them to where they need to be. So if their goal is to move to Lafayette, or their goal is to sell this one so they can get into a larger house, remember that when you're conversing with them. So going back over to here. So I'm going to go back into Matrix. And in Matrix, what I like to do is I'll go through and start to pull the comps for a property based upon the general rules. And once I have those MLS numbers, I'm going to jump into this tool right here called Cloud CMA. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of Cloud CMA. What I want to share with you is how easy it is to use that bad boy. And not only can you use it for doing a CMA, but I would recommend using it for a pre-listing packet as well. So when you first log into Cloud CMA, you'll see all these tabs here at the top. You'll have a CMA, you'll have a buyer's report, a property report, a flyer that you can do. Homebeat is basically just like a updates people of what's going on in the market, what's happening, all that fun stuff. So what I'm going to be focusing on is the CMA. Now, I already have one that I'd started. If you want to do a new one, you just click right here. But I'm going to edit this one because I've already put a lot of information in here. So you start with the basic information, obviously the street address, square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms. The pictures here, obviously if you're doing CMA, you might not have a photo, but I would recommend at least taking your iPhone and snapping a photo. Obviously, you want to have a good looking quality photo on there because it is going to put it onto the report. But I would say anything is better than nothing. So If you're good enough with it, you can do that. If not, then go find an old MLS photo that looks good. Or if you really don't want to leave your house, then you can just use Google Street View and steal a shot from there. Obviously, it would look best if you had a better photo, but just get the job done. So when you first open the CMA, you'll put in the client's information. And down here, there's two different ways that you can get the comparative listings in there. One is you can do the quick and dirty, that it will pull them for you. I don't recommend that. What I recommend is the exact listings. So this is why I go into the MLS to pull the comps, and then I put their information in here. Once I have all that in there, then I'll just update it and move on to the next. So the next part is going through the listings. So you'll see it'll map them all out here for you. Sorry, I had to take a sip of my coffee. And down here is where it's going to have all the listings, and you can see right here the details and adjustments. Now, with the details and adjustments, like I said earlier, is since we are not appraisers, I typically suggest don't do any adjustments. Just try to find something as close as possible. But sometimes that's not always possible. So one example is I had a property that I was trying to find a price on, where it was in a neighborhood that a lot of the homes were the same floor plan. So I found that exact same floor plan with the same finishes, with the pool. The main difference was the subject property had a very large parcel, much larger than any of the other parcels in that neighborhood. So I could use that other property as a direct comp, but I did have to make adjustments. So what I did was I went into the MLS and I searched around that general area for vacant, unimproved land. And I found the average price per acre for unimproved vacant land in that area, and said, okay, well, if this is selling for, we'll say 125 an acre, then what I needed to focus on was what's the difference in acreage between one house on one side of the street with a large parcel and then a house on the other side of the street with a smaller parcel. So I took the difference between those and then times it out by what the average price per acre was. And that's where I would go back into my Cloud CMA. So let me open that up. And I will go to, what was I clicking on earlier? Oh, this thing. There we go. So I'll go into CMA and I would say adjustment name would be for land size, acreage, whatever you want to put there. It's completely up to you. If the difference was 25,643, I would put that there. So considering that if we were pretending like this parcel was smaller than the subject parcel, then I want to make sure that I'm adding to this to get to the number that I need. So you can see with the adjustment, it'll do that. Now, if this one had a garage or extra bedrooms or things like that, I would do the same thing. I would go through and in that market, I would compare, okay, well, what's the difference between a 4-bedroom and a 5-bedroom, and figure out kind of some of the price differences of comparable properties that just have one more bedroom to try to get a better understanding of what possibly could be the difference for that. So then that way I can really start to narrow down of what the adjustment amount would be for that specific area, focusing on that specific item that needs to be adjusted. So if I did that and I realized that a bathroom was the difference, and this one had an extra bathroom, and bathrooms were going for about 15,000 in that market, and I'll put that right there and save it. You'll see it'll make the adjustment. Once you've gone through all of those, then you can move on to customizing your report. Now, when you customize the report, there's a ton of stuff in here. So what I would do is before you present a CMA like this to your clients, I would go and do a CMA on your own property, on where you live, whether you rent it or own it or whatever it is, living with a really good friend. Go through and use that specific property and see how close you can really narrow in on your CMA, and then fill out all the information. And on there, you'll see all the different reports that they have. I would say check every single one of them. And what you'll do is you'll be able to go through there and start to see all the different resources that are available. And you can decide, okay, well, what I want to add and what I want to take out. So you can see, obviously, you can change the theme, the cover, the font, the layout, the template, all that fun stuff. You can add a cover letter specifically to them. You can change the title page, add your resume. As you can see, this is kind of some of the stuff that I would put in a pre-listing packet as well. So you can have everything in here. Now, when doing the comps, I do like to make sure that I am leaving not only the statistical information in there, but I also want to make sure that I have pictures of the comp property in there, not just the front of it. I want to have the inside of it, the bedrooms, basically get an idea of what the properties all look like. So then that way they can click through and actually see the difference between their home and what the comparable properties are. And then once you publish the report, there's going to be two different ways that you can present it. So one way that you can present the report as it's publishing is you can present it as a PDF. So you can actually print it out, or you can put it as an attachment, or you can do it as a slideshow as well. So there's a few different ways that you will be able to do it to maintain your social distancing. Cool. Let me show you what that looks like. So we'll jump over here. Okay, so now that it's done publishing, I'll go ahead and I'll view the slideshow for you guys. We just have to wait for it. There we go. All right, so here's the comparative market analysis. You can see we got the little click buttons down here. So this is something that I could present to them on my computer or my iPad if I was with them, or if not, then I can email them this link and tell them, hey, go ahead and click through, have fun with it. Great, we get the idea. And then we'll look at the PDF right here. And you can see that the PDF, all printed out, has my client's name on here, has my info, has a little narrative that I wrote up for him, has my resume. Oh, impressive resume. Talks about our company, talks about what is a CMA, and then here where it has all the information laid out for him right here. And you can see how it breaks the whole thing down. So it actually makes it really simple. And here's the pictures I was telling you about, to have all the pictures in there. So when people start to say, well, no, my property is better than that because of X, Y, and Z, well, they have the pictures right here. They can start to see all that. And if you do know that, oh, well, no, that doesn't actually match my property because mine has an extra bedroom or mine is on a larger lot, well, then you can explain, oh, yeah, well, I actually have made the adjustments for that, taking it into consideration. So let me jump back into the meeting. Did you guys see all that? Yeah? Okay, good. Now, one other thing that I wanted to share with you guys, because we do have a wide array of different properties, is if I jump back over to one of the old CMAs that I did. So this is going
Adam,
back. Yeah.
I got a question. So that everything you did there, you did that through the Cloud CMA through Matrix?
Yeah, I did.
And then, so you were able to put all of your like Keller Williams logos or any type of logos through that whole program? Okay, I need to play with that some more, obviously.
Yeah, and you can
Okay.
actually, what I'll do is, let me jump over to that screen. I'll show you how easy it actually is. When I'm looking at editing it, if I go into the customize area where I was earlier, you can see right here I can change the theme. I I can pick any of the different themes that kind of match what we have. There are other Keller Williams offices that have paid to have like custom designing done, but I wouldn't worry about that. You can change the layout of how it looks. You can have whatever kind of cover you want. The font, you can change that. And then also in your account settings is where you're going to update your information right here. And you'll see how I uploaded a logo that I was able to get from KW Connect.
Okay.
So it'll have all the information in there.
Nice.
Cool. All
yeah,
right.
thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions before we keep rolling forward? Okay. Exciting group today. All right. So like I said, I'm going to jump back over to this other CMA that I was showing you guys earlier, right here. And the reason I want to show you this one is since it was a 4-family apartment building, it was a great property, but there weren't any comparable properties at all. No multifamily had sold in that area for well over 11 years. So finding comps for it was impossible. It just wouldn't work. So I had to come up with different ways to do it. So for this one, what I did was I actually looked for, okay, well, what does a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo around 950 square feet sell for? And then I found that's this bottom part right here. So I went through and I looked at the market to say, okay, well, what are they selling for? And from there, just times it by 4. That was an easy way. One other thing I did was I actually went into the MLS and I said, okay, so for this market area, if I look at what the increase or decrease of values were from 2010 to 2011 and saw that it was about an increase of 4%. So I took the sold price from when this sold in 2010 and I added 4% and got the new price. And then looked at, well, what's the difference between 2011 and 2012? It's an increase of 2%. So I took the new price, added 2%. And then what's the difference between 2012 and 2013? It went down 1%. So I took that price and then minus 1% and kept going, rolling that forward year over year, all the way up to the year when I'd sold this property back in 2017. So that's an interesting way to do it, but just letting you know that anything is possible. One other fun one that I did was the income capitalization approach. So I'm not sure if any of you guys are really familiar with the income capitalization approach because it was taught in your pre-licensing course and most people of us don't ever go back to it. But what that does is it's going to take all of the gross rents, it adds them up, has the estimated vacancy rate to get you your total gross or your total income right here. Because this is the expected gross income, this is the actual gross income. Then you have all of your expenses, add those up to subtract it out. So then you get your net operating income. And with your net operating income, you just divide that by either a capitalization rate or you divide it by the price of the property. So since this one, I didn't know what the price was, I had to go by an estimated cap rate. And with this property being not necessarily the best of properties, I had to kind of guess of where a C-class property would trade for and put it right at around, I believe it was 8%. So I took my NOI, times it by that 8%, and then that's where I was able to get the value for the property. Does all of that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And for other properties, let's say you've got some short-term rentals like our friend Wallace over here. What I can do is jump into here. And here is an example of what I call a pro forma that analyzes a short-term rental property that was put on the market for sale. So I can see, we have the purchase price, their rental income, all the expenses. Once again, gets down to the NOI. And then this one, since we know the price, it will calculate the cap rate for us. So the cap rate's about 6.1%, which for a rental property, a short-term rental property, I think is really good. So if you guys are interested in this property, text me. And this is actually just a simple thing that I had done inside of Numbers or Excel. So you can do all this simple information. It'll calculate the whole thing for you. And what I do is I create it as a template and then save that information to publish out. Now, even if you have a property that isn't currently a short-term rental property, that's fine. But if it's in an area where it could be, then that's just one more thing that you can do to kind of look at it and say, all right, well, maybe this isn't highest best use for this property. Let's look at other ways of analyzing it to get an idea of what it potentially could get if we brought this property to market, and looking at it from different aspects of that. One other one that I wanted to bring up to you guys was the cost approach. Oh, hold on, Zachary's asking a question. Where are the expenses already listed? So Zachary wants to know where the expenses are already listed, or did the program estimate the data? And would you mind sharing that pro forma? Yes, Wallace, I'll share that with everybody. So Zachary, with the expenses, there's two ways to go about it. So one way, if you have the listing, just ask the owner, how much is your HOA? How much is your utility bill? The main thing you want to focus on is those numbers are all annual figures. So I want to ask them, like, okay, well, what's your power bill now? And then what is it? What has it been? Get an idea of all of them, and then add that all up. Their property taxes, I can find out. Their HOA, I can find out. Just asking them all that. Now, on the other side, if you're working with a buyer and you don't have that information, or the listing agent won't give you any of that information, that's where you kind of got to guess a little bit. Because for the most part, I'm sure you have enough clients, or if you have your own house, or you have enough information to be able to figure out where some of the expenses are. The majority of the expenses on there are going to be things that you can find from the MLS. So you can find what the taxes are. You can find what their HOA dues are. And the hard part would be is if you didn't know what insurance costs would be. That's where it would be good to have an insurance partner that you could ask, hey, could you pull some information for me? And then that way, when you're giving your client that pro forma, you can actually attach, the information from the insurance company that says, hey, this is how much it's going to be. They say it's about $1,200 a year for insurance on this. And if that's what you like, you can go ahead and give them a call. So that's one way that you can really rely on some of your other partners to help you with information like that. And keeping in mind that it could change. So letting them know that these are all just rough estimates to give you a general idea of what things are going to look like for you in the future. But everything's subject to change. And then with the management of it, basically what I do is I try to reach out to about 3 different management companies and ask them, hey, can you do a rental projection for this property? And I'll send them over everything I know about the property. And in most markets, they'll actually have a nice presentation of a rental projection that they can share with you that you can actually give to your clients. And a lot of times short-term management companies will even give you a referral. I know one company that I worked with gave 1% of the purchase price in addition to the sale for the referral. Let me see if I have a rental projection that I can share with you guys. Nope. Here we go. Let me open this and I'll share my screen with you guys for 1 second. Is anyone hot, or is it just me? We need to turn on the AC.
Adam, it's just you because you're in the call.
Yeah, I think it's my ring light. Okay, so here's an example of a rental projection, and you can see they did this for a community. So there's different townhouses or homes that are available, total square foot, potential rental income. So this would be one example of a projection. Now, like I said, I like to get 3 of them and then add them all together, divide it by 3, and then put an average of them. And then I also want to make sure that I'm including in expenses their management fee. Because some people might charge 18% is what I've seen kind of on the low side. 20 to 25 tends to be kind of the normal side. And I've seen up to 40% on the high side. So making sure that you do ask them, hey, how much is this going to cost my client, so you can get a better idea. They might say, oh yeah, we can go ahead and rent that out and make $200,000 a year, but the rental fees or their management fees are 40%. So then it drops it way down to the other people who are saying it's less, but they're charging a lot less. So sometimes people will kind of inflate those a little bit in order to get the business and then not be able to perform. So make sure that when you get out there and you do start working with people like that, that you understand how much they've been able to do and they're actually able to keep doing it. So one other thing I wanted to share with you guys was, let me jump back over to this screen. So in this other CMA that I did, you will notice that we have a cost approach. The cost approach is also one thing that you guys would have learned in your pre-licensing class. And basically what I did here is I called some builders. So I called 3 different builders and I talked to them and I said, hey, how much is it going to be to rebuild this property? And knowing that I've got to be with a builder who isn't building something that's solid block construction covered in concrete, that's built for fortified for safer living standards with concrete roofs and completely mapped out property. I want to be working with a builder who is, it's stick built, tin roof, and they're doing, just the regular siding on the side, nothing fancy. A builder like that. So I reached out to them and said, how much is it going to cost to build this new? And on that one, I think it was about $120 a foot. So then I would take that and then times it by the overall square footage of the whole building. And remembering that since it's a residential building, we can depreciate it. I believe it's 27 and a half years of appreciation. So basically what I did was take, okay, well, if that's new and this building is 10 years old, taking that depreciation and then backing it out of that new build. And then that would give me the cost of the physical structure. Now what I had to do was take the land out. And then once again, I did a comparative market analysis for just buildable vacant land and then found the price per acre for that and said, okay, well, if the price per acre is about 180 per acre, how many acres do I have here? It's about 1/4 of an acre. So I times that by what my price was and then take my depreciated building and then add that back on, and that will give me the price. So that's the cost approach. Obviously with properties in New Orleans, that one's going to be a little bit more difficult because if you have a property that's 100 years old, then just like myself, you're fully depreciated. So that one might be a little bit tough to do, but just realizing that there's a million different ways to go about a CMA, and there's a ton of different ways to present the information to your client. So realizing that there's not one set. Oh, Zachary says I'm fully appreciated. So realizing that there's a lot of different ways to go about this. So sometimes you have to get a little creative with still staying in the left and right boundaries of being able to present this information. So now that I've rambled on for 36 minutes, what questions do you guys have? How can I help? No questions. Cool. Well, if you guys do have anything after the fact, like I said, this video we're going to be publishing on our YouTube, so you can catch up at any time. Of course, you can always call, text, or email me if you do have any questions, you get stuck on a property. But as your homework, I would say go ahead and jump into the MLS, open up Cloud CMA, and have some fun. As you can see, I did. If I'm going to be running a CMA, I might as well do one with millions on it. So enjoy. Once you're done, if you're proud of them, then go ahead and email them over to me so I can see some of the cool stuff you guys are doing. So that is everything. And Tina asked where we're posting the videos. We're posting them on our YouTube. So after I get it uploaded to YouTube, well, now that my boss is on here, I'll say later today. If he wasn't, it might be next week sometime, but he's here, so later today. I'll have it uploaded to YouTube.
You can search KW New Orleans, Tina, or we have a really annoying link